I think that that was just a lot of bluster because he made this comment like, I'm not afraid of boots on the ground. And as I said on my show right after that, I said he needs to be afraid of that. That would be absolute disaster. That would be disaster politically. It would definitely be disaster militarily.
From a military perspective, Daniel, should we start there that however you look at this, this shows the ability of America to pull off difficult military operations with a great deal of accuracy and success?
Well, it certainly does. I mean, you can really forget about all the things that go along with it and just look at the way the military operation was executed, all the rehearsals that went into it, the logistics, the training, and then, of course, the execution on the day of. And according to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, it was originally planned for a certain day, and then it had to be pushed back because of weather, and so that still didn't push anything off. But once the order of execution came down, it came off really something close to flawless from a tactical perspective. I would add that there is some evidence to suggest that there was some inside information that was going on there. May have even been some people working from the inside to help facilitate some of this, because it seems like it was pretty unlikely, just at face value, that we would be able to take the president of a country who was definitely aware that he was at risk, and that he wouldn't even be able to make it into the safe room. That seems a little odd to me, unless there was somebody helping on the inside. But even with that, the fact that we were able to get in there with only one helicopter that was hit, as I understand it, and even that was extracted. Nothing else was knocked down. No friendly people were killed. So from our perspective, it was pretty amazing.
So that's the tactics of it, the strategy of it. I mean, I know if you're in the military, your first job is to execute the order that you're given. But the lesson from Iraq and other places is you've got to think of what happens on day 2, day 3, day 100, and so on. What do you make of the planning that you're aware of around that?
Yeah, so far, everything that I've been able to see or ascertain from folks who know, and I've talked to some folks that have access to some people at the Pentagon, I'll say, so far, all the planning and preparation was for this one snatch and grab mission. And that's it. The military hasn't been given, as I understand it, any follow-on missions. They had a phase 2 that was in the can that was not used because the first part was so successful they didn't need to execute it. But beyond that, I think that they're still in a wait-and-see posture. And my bigger concern is at the strategic level. I don't see any evidence that we even know what we want to accomplish besides taking Maduro out and now taking him to New York. But what next? I mean, this whole thing about we're going to take control of the country. We're going to take control of the oil infrastructure. I mean, what does that mean? How are you going to do that? What happens if they don't comply? Are we ready to go into a big, all of these huge questions I haven't even seen anyone ask, much less answer. And that's a problem.
Because the deputy who's left, Trump says, oh, she's fine. She's on board. She'll do anything it takes. That's not what she's saying in public. And therefore, the question must follow. If she says, well, no dice, what does America do next? And he said boots on the ground. What does that mean? He's not going to invade Venezuela, do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that was just a lot of bluster because he made this comment like, I'm not afraid of boots on the ground. And as I said on my show right after that, I said he needs to be afraid of that. That would be absolute disaster. That would be disaster politically. It would definitely be disaster militarily, because the last thing that we want to do is get into a shooting war with Venezuela. We only have allegedly somewhere around 15 to 18,000 men total, our Air Force, Marines, and Navy in the area. That's not enough to do anything except for do a snatch and grab kind of operation here. You can't go on the ground on that. It would take, and I mean literally hundreds of thousands of people that would be able to go in, in various waves and have rotations, et cetera. You would have to resource all of that before you were going to go in. And if you do it without doing that, without that preparation, then you could have a strategic disaster on your hands. Because now then, if your bluff is called and if they don't work with you and then you try to use more force, but you can't bring it to fruition, you can't bring them to heel, now then what are you going to do? Then you have to either back down or you have to ramp up. And President Trump doesn't strike me as one who would go, yeah, okay, we failed. I'll just accept the loss and move on. He's not very good at that. So I worried that then that might cause escalation. And the fact that you haven't thought this stuff through and resourced your various options, that's concerning to me.
I mean, there's this kind of fundamental issue here is that how much should the US military be used in what looks like a policing matter? If you believe Trump that this is a way of going after someone who's committed drug offenses, that's what he's being held for in New York at the moment. That's one question. This is sort of a policing matter as a way of going after someone who's ultimately in charge of the drugs that come into the US. But taking out a leader of another country using the military primarily seems to put it in a slightly separate camp as well.
Well, listen, I mean, this is just the latest in a long string of that. I mean, these whole strikes against all of these alleged drug boats in the Pacific and the Caribbean seas. I mean, there is no justification in law for that. Even American law, if we capture people who are running drugs, who are dealing drugs, that's not a capital offense. And there is no law on the planet that says that you can just execute, in summary execute, someone who is suspected of running drugs because they're in a boat that you claim with no evidence provided to anywhere, no court of law, no due process, that, yeah, I said he's guilty, so we kill them all and leave no one alive. There's no law for that. So we've already just completely rewritten, or more accurately, ignored the law there. So this is just the natural next step. And that's one of the problems that I have with this, is that if no one no one is ever held to account, if no one ever says, this is the law, you've broken it and there's consequences, then there is no law. And where is it going to stop?
Well, you know that. I mean, the way America has functioned, I mean, America doesn't always sign up to international agreements. It doesn't recognize The Hague, for example. There's an argument, it strikes me, that international law doesn't really exist. International law is the law of the playground. Who's the biggest person in it? Who's the toughest person in it? Who's got the most military might? And that's, to a large extent, America. And if Donald Trump is being strategic, he might say, certainly in his own sphere of influence, if you look at the Americas, if you look at that part of the world, he doesn't need to care about international law because he's the biggest figure there.
Yeah, and listen, we just got to be, core level honest here. That's been going on for quite a while. We in the United States, at least, we tried to put a good face on this, and we actually tried to kind of go through the rule of law. Even when we stepped outside of it in the past, we would kind of get back into it because we want to try and hold others accountable and, to this whole rules-based fifth order. But look, this is really what's going on in the Russia-Ukraine war. You have Keir Starmer, for example, commonly saying, I want a just and lasting peace for Ukraine, Ukraine is on the bottom side of the power dynamic. Russia has all of the leverage. They've got all the power. And so they're saying, I'm not even worried about talking about anything. I don't even care about the Donbass and your willingness. I'm just going to take what I want militarily. And they can. So forget about whatever the rules were, whatever the laws were. That's what they're doing over there. That's what we're doing here. And I'm telling you, this is a dangerous place for the world when we're now setting the standard that it's okay to just rule by power, and that we're not even going to pretend with the rule of law, because the rule of law is there to protect really those who are powerless. Because if it's just the rule of the jungle, then we're all at stake. And I mean, not just nations, but even within your nations, once you get rid of the rule of law, why stop there? We'll do something even domestically. And you see, this could get ugly very fast if we don't get back into this pretty quick.
Daniel, it's great to speak to you. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us.